right, so now we're going to move into transitioning. So if you're someone who is transitioning and you're about the change process, then our next speaker, Barbara Visser, is amazing. Let me just say she's the president of ICF, the International Coaching Federation. I actually know her because I've spoken with that group before, and she's such a cool person. She's highly skilled in corporate technology environment, navigating complex roles and career goals while being a parent and raising a family. She knows all about it. She's done executive communication, engagement, program management, event planning, leadership coaching. She's a rock star. That's all there is to it. And she's also a birth doula as a side gig. All right. Thank you, Barbara, for being here. Hey, what's your power word for the year?
Deepen.
Deepen. I love it. Okay. I'm turning it over to you. Thanks so much for.
Thanks. So how many times have we heard this list already over the week? Our landscape is filled with immense change right now. Working from home, lost jobs, health concerns, remote learning, lack of childcare, grief, and loss. And that is all on top of change that we actually desire and are seeking out. Switching to a new role, pivoting to a new industry, stepping into leadership for the first time, moving toward your dream and that general desire to grow. I've lived these changes. I've had 3 distinct career seasons. I started in the nonprofit sector, I moved to technology, and now I have moved into coaching as an entrepreneur. In one single company in the corporate space, technology, I stayed for 20 years. I had 9 different jobs, and I had 27 different managers. That was change, constant change. I also built a family while working. I also served as a caregiver to my parents when they were sick, and they both passed away during that time. And last but not least, in the midst of designing a graceful exit that would have allowed me to step into my dream job, I was laid off right at the start of the pandemic. Our landscape is filled with changes. So how do we navigate with confidence, awareness, and energy? I'm going to share my screen for a moment. So I believe that it's like kind of a road trip, right? When you're going on a road trip, what do? You check the map. You mark the key exits, you know where the rest stops are, the gas stations, the restaurants, maybe a viewpoint along the way. And this is a framework I have used again and again and again in my own life. And it's a 3-word framework. I reflect, I refuel, and I respond. I reflect, I refuel, and I respond. And this is the framework I'm going to walk us through today through a set of small stories. So after I had worked in the nonprofit and tech world for years, I found myself hitting a plateau. I realized my career growth was stagnant and I was less fulfilled than I had been before. And I was hungry to figure out what my dream job was. What's the next step? And a mentor introduced me to this activity, and they asked me to build a timeline of all the moments. Build a timeline, show me. So I'm very literal. So I built a timeline and I identified these different seasons of my career. I put dates and jobs on the list, and then I added a set of the personal stuff that happens along the way because life and work are intermixed. They don't happen separately. And then I paused to reflect. And I kind of drew a pulse line. Where was I my happiest? Where did I perform the best? Where were those golden moments that I could hold as a sign like this is what's perfect? And so with that reflection, I was able to identify a niche that I wanted to go after. It informed my networking. It informed all of those informational interviews that we just heard about. And finally, it led to an introduction, and I got that first yes. It's right here in the middle. I got that first big yes for an internal communications job. And it led to this beautiful 12-year arc across my career. But it was this motion of pausing to reflect and assessing what made me happy that helped me come up with this list of job satisfaction criteria. So, my invitation for you is to do a similar process. Reflect on your career journey. Build that timeline of key moments. It doesn't have to be a static slide. You could be creative. It could be a river, it can be a mountain trail, it can be a map. It can be anything that helps you put together the picture and the pieces of your journey. And then go through with a big yellow highlighter and circle the moments that you loved the most. Reflect on those patterns and in the insights. What are the common threads? How do you understand and articulate your ideal work environment, and what are your priorities for choosing a job? What always shows up when you show up? How do you articulate that? I think this is really helpful in informing our resume and that, paragraph of introduction. And it's like the essence of you. This is a way of reflection to understand how you share that when you're having conversations. And then look ahead, get a peek preview of what might next look like. What do you want to do more of? And what's the dream? I'll stop sharing now and I'll get back to Remo. There we are. So you can reflect by mapping your career journey. And then these reflections become the signposts as you're driving down the freeway. It flavors what you put out there. And more importantly, you define success on your own terms. You understand what you wish for, which things are flexible, and what are your non-negotiable must-haves. So reflect and then use those as signs to help you navigate. While we're driving down the road of life, we also need to stop for gas. And I call this the step of refueling. And while from my birth doula days, I realized that we can do anything for a minute or 90 seconds, which is about the longest a contraction ever lasts. What do we do when we know the fit is poor, or when we're navigating yet another unexpected change? What do we do in those low, lost, languishing moments? We refuel. We refuel to stay engaged through the highs and lows and to stay present. We nurture ourselves and we inspire ourselves, because sometimes when I say, oh, how are you feeding yourself? People will immediately think of self-care in the relax mode. And while that's true, because the month I got laid off, what did I do? I took a hot bath every day. That's all I could manage. It was that nurturing, calm, restorative energy. But I soon figured out that I also needed the fuel that lifted my spirits, that re-inspired me. And so for me, it's a mix of both restful and energizing fuel that I need. Now, for me and many of my coaching clients, the need to refuel was very real before the pandemic, and it's even more so now. So I share this story, which is pre-pandemic. Um, I was navigating through one more reorg, which which put me in a position that was not tenable. It was a very conflicted relationship. I felt my morale plummet. I cried about every day. There was a lot of tension. My motivation decreased and my performance decreased. I had to figure out how to refuel and stay engaged through this patch of time where I was looking for work, but I hadn't been able to move yet. So I did three things in that moment. First, I joined Toastmasters. I had joined Toastmasters on my performance development plan for literally 3 years, and then I never did it because I was busy being a speech writer for other leaders. So finally I joined, and it was like a bright light midweek. I got to go to a friendly meeting, not one that was tense, with people cheering me on. I learned new skills that were important for me that directly influenced how I was doing my job. And I felt a genuine sense of progress that lifted my spirit. I also started painting. I I dabbled in art. I'm not an artist, but I'm an artist now. I started painting abstract acrylics, and that helped me study something new, get out of my head, get into a state of flow. and doubled as beautiful quality time with my daughter, where she was now the expert bringing me along in something that she loved. Those examples nurtured and energized me and kept me engaged during dark times. And so I'm wondering for you all, what are those things that fuel you? What do you know? Please enter them in chat. I would love to hear a bit about those things that you use to fuel yourself. And, oh, vacation, great first one. Here are other things I tried over the years. I found a mentor. I became a mentor. I worked with a coach. I took classes. I got a certification. I volunteered. I read books and listened to podcasts. Really, I'm asking you to do anything that you love to do. Yoga, singing, wonderful, running, paddleboarding, hiking, Netflix. Ooh, I love that. Yes, escape is restful. Sunlight, hiking, walking. I want you guys to use this list, and then I want you to recognize what is allowable within your very real time constraints. I understand these ideas are not a quick fix solution for the real challenges we face, for real mental health challenges, but the beauty is that you can define what fuels you where you are right now, and you get to right size the effort and the investment. So I give you, and I want you to give yourself permission to refuel. And then finally, the final step in the framework is to respond. Like, get in the driver's seat and drive. You use these ideas from the boot camp to move from a state of readiness to a state of responsiveness. You scan for the signs that you've defined that indicate an opening, a new path, a chance to accelerate or slow down. So from the power of reflection, with that refueled energy, you know with loving self-awareness, you know when to stay and when to go, when to say yes and when to say no, when your values are being stepped on and compromised, and when you're truly shining. And even if you need to stay a bit longer in like something that doesn't feel great for a little while longer, you can find ways to bring your values to life in the moment where you are. Very short last story. In my final corporate role, I was asked to take on a position that I did not like. I had an immediate reaction and I wanted to say, no, no way. But then I realized with great fear that I had to say yes. I had to, because I needed the money. My family relied on the income and I couldn't walk away. So I realized both of those reactions were fear-based. I took the weekend. I reflected on what I knew about myself. I made sure to refuel my tank by taking a beautiful walk outside. And then I measured that opportunity against my values. So in that proposed role, could I be brave? Could I be creative? Could I be capable? That was all true. And so I moved from that fear-based yes, that felt terrible, to a values-led yes that lasted a good another year. So I responded rather than reacted, and I felt my hands become steady on the wheel once again. So wherever you are, before, during, after a transition, you are always able to reflect, refuel, and respond. You have a map and road signs to navigate thanks to your reflection. You can refuel along the way in the right ways to stay engaged, and you have the power to respond, to drive, to notice and take action. So that's my framework. You can see and explore moments of opportunity and arrive again and again and again in the places where you belong and thrive. Thanks.
That's so incredible. I love that framework. So simple and so useful, really to take the time. And I appreciate that you told so many stories in that. That was the great Toastmaster training, I would just say, because I really feel like that's part of what we get to see is the experience, especially the way you opened it with having lost that job after you'd already been moved around a million times in the company, right? And so thank you so much for sharing all those tips. Really appreciate seeing you too. You look fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you. And look for notes in the chat when you go out into the mainstream, because a lot of people made some comments out here. So
perfect.